In a major development, Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh has approved the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft Program, or the AMCA program, through the industry partnership model. Now, that's a huge shot in the arm for the Atmanirbhar Bharat push. Now, this gives equal opportunity both to the public sector and to the private sector in high-end defense production. Made in India fighter jet and the 5th generation. It will have stealth features. There, of course, will be competition and partnership between the ADA, the Aeronautics Development Agency, and the private sector. There could also be a consortium. So the Aeronautical Development Agency is set to execute this project, AMCA project. The 5th generation fighter jet, it has stealth features, there's industry partnership, there's lots that's happening, but the timelines, remember, Pakistan is getting its 5th generation aircraft as a dole from China, perhaps in the next couple of months. Ours may take a decade. With the Made in India weapons proving themselves in the battlefield during Operation Sindoor, the Narendra Modi government has decided to push ahead with the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, or AMCA project, through the Atmanirbhar Bharat route. Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh approved the AMCA program, which the Aeronautical Development Agency, or ADA, is set to execute through private and public partnership. The government in a statement said the execution model approach provides equal opportunities to both private and public sectors on competitive basis. They can bid either independently or as a joint venture or as a consortia. The entity bidder should be an Indian company compliant with the laws and regulations of the country. At the Aero India show at Yelahanka, India Today had reported on not just the first mock-up of AMCA, but also spoke to the project director and the team.
We have got the sanction for the full-scale engineering development of the AMCA in April 2024. We thank the Indian government for giving us this prestigious project to the Aeronautical Development Agency, which is the ADA has been steering this particular program from its conceptual stage. We have started our official journey in 2010, and today we are showcasing to the country the full-scale engineering model of the AMCA, demonstrating the key technological advances that our country has achieved with our indigenous efforts.
The Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft will be India's 5th generation fighter jet. The Cabinet Committee on Security had approved the 15,000 crore rupee project in March 2024 for 5 prototypes. The first prototype is expected by 2028-29. The Indian Air Force plans to induct the first AMCA by 2035. IAF plans to acquire between 160 to 200 AMCAs, that's between 7 and 10 squadrons, by 2047. The first flight of AMCA is set for late 2030s. Mass production is targeted between 2035-36. The government has given a major push to the AMCA project, with Pakistan seeking 30 to 40 J-35 5th generation fighters from China after Pakistan's debacle in Operation Sindoor. AMCA development is proposed in 2 phases, a Mark I with the General Electric F414 engines and a Mark II with a more powerful engine planned to be co-developed in future. With Shivani Sharma and Sandeep Unithan, Bureau Report, India Today. The plans are huge. The plans are also Atmanirbhar Bharat. Of course, engines right now, we're talking about a G414, a General Electric, an American engine, but on AMCA Mark II, perhaps a joint venture, an engine that's co-developed, perhaps maybe in times to come with Safran of France. But what's the AMCA like? It has a stealth airframe, composite material, advanced sensors and data fusion is something that they're talking about, and it'll have advanced avionics. That's extremely significant. It has the ability to supercruise, the advanced weapons on board. There's a lot of conversation about made in India weapons, whether it's the smart anti-airfield weapon. And remember the way India pulverized multiple airfields in Pakistan from Noor Khan to Sargodha. So made in India anti-airfield weapons, and also the Astra beyond visual range missiles. Extremely important because BVR is the key. Go beyond 200 kilometers, Astra 2, and Sandeep Punithan will just join me in a moment to tell us more about it. Internal weapon load, about 1,500 kilograms. The payload capacity in all is 5,500 kilograms. The internal fuel capacity is 6,500 kilograms. The first flight, the conversation is perhaps 2027, service entry, hopefully mid-2030s. But remember, Pakistan is in the process of acquiring its 5th generation J-35s from China in a couple of months from now. And I quickly want to cut across and bring in Sandeep Punithan for more on this, my colleague who's been tracking not just the AMCA journey, but also weapons that our adversaries are quickly acquiring. So we'll talk about China in just a moment, Sandeep. But India's AMCA getting a green light from the government, how significant is it, considering we've been covering this for quite a while now?
Well, Gaurav, it's been a while, and a while is an understatement. It's almost 16 years since we've embarked on this path of giving the Indian Air Force a 5th generation combat fighter. And as you pointed out, we're still not at the prototype stage yet. We're still at the design stage. It's going to be several years before we see the first prototype flying. But it is a very ambitious project, Gaurav, and it literally puts us into a very small group of countries that have developed their own 5th generation fighter aircraft. It is very critical for the Indian Air Force, which is not only looking at a dwindling fighter squadron strength, but also twin adversaries on its borders in the north and in the west, both of whom have a collusive relationship, as we've discussed in the past. And the fact is that China, as you mentioned, could very soon transfer 5th generation fighter aircraft technology to Pakistan.
Technology and aircraft, and perhaps there are some reports that seem to indicate on a 50% discount, they may give them between 30 to 40 J-35s perhaps in a couple of months from now.
Absolutely.
At least that process will start in a couple of months from now.
Gaurav, after the beating the PAF took on the 10th of May, it needs something very big to show its people, to make up for its morale that's taken a battering. It's not just the airfields that were battered, it's the PAF's morale. I think they did not expect the kind of Indian Air Force attack on the 10th of May, and that took them a surprise. And that is a wound that they would like to kind of try and heal by acquiring 5th generation fighter aircraft very quickly. As you pointed out, there's talk of something like 40 J-35s that could come to the Pakistan Air Force. And that is, of course, going to, increase the pressure on India to get its own 5th generation aircraft program. But, Gaurav, we have to play this very carefully. This is a very, very critical indigenous defense effort for India to get off the ground. It's now or never for us with this program, and which is why the government has been looking at various models to execute this public-private partnership, where ADA talks not only to HAL, but there will be significant private players as well, like Larsen & Toubro, Tata, Mahindras, all of whom proved themselves in aircraft manufacture. Not, of course, the complete aircraft, but they've been, Tier 2 and Tier 3 contractors. So they're going to leverage HAL's expertise, which is the only fighter aircraft manufacturer in India, and also get the private sector on board. The key, thing to watch out for in this program, Gaurav, is the work share. How is this work share going to be decided? Who is going to oversee this project? And here is something they can look at, the lessons that can be taken from the strategic submarine program, which is delivered so beautifully. It's got 4 submarines in the water, 2 are commissioned, 2 more to be commissioned in the next couple of years. That's again a very, very critical technology that India developed by itself with some help from our Russian partners, Gaurav.
Oh, absolutely. Timelines are also significant. There should be no slippages, because this is where, when you talk about Operation Sindoor being the new normal, every Indian has to put, his and her shoulder to the wheel to ensure that we are able to deliver what our armed forces need and with zero error. But tell me this, between now and 2035, especially with our squadron strength depleting, we would need something in the interim, and that clearly cannot be, made at home. It will have to be acquired.
Absolutely, Gaurav. So there is talk of acquiring a small number of fifth-generation fighter aircraft to bridge this gap that you mentioned, this next decade when our own fifth-generation AMCA gets off the ground. There's talk of the Su-57 coming in from Russia. Of course, the Russians are very keen that we acquire it, and they see it as a natural progression of the Sukhoi 30. But there's another school of thought, Gaurav, that suggests that India upgrading its Sukhoi 30 fleet indigenously would give you capabilities that would approach those that are already fielded in the Su-57. So, there's a very significant number of capability enhancements for the Su-30 using indigenous technologies that have developed for our own light combat aircraft program. So they're very confident in upgrading the Su-30 indigenously. So again, it's anyone's guess if we are going to go in for that small number, or we're just going to wait, be patient, and deliver this aircraft in the timelines that we've looked at.
And even when additional aircraft need to come in the interim, you have to be battle ready. In future, we will talk about manned, unmanned tandem teams in operations. But till that happens, are we boosting our rocket force, our missile force? Because that's also something in the interim can hold us in good stead like it did. I mean, I'm superbly impressed with the Su-30s and the BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles. And our BrahMos has done so well, and Pakistanis will vouch for it.
Absolutely, Gaurav. You hit the nail on the head there. And, you have to look at examples of other countries that don't even have significant air forces, which have used drones and missile forces to make up for this gap. I'm not saying that the Indian Air Force has to do that, but these are some of those indigenous solutions that we can look at to bridge this fighter, gap. We have a sanction strength of around 40 fighter squadrons. We are down to about 30. That's an unacceptable gap that's been allowed to open up in the last couple of years without, no acquisitions happening. Now, in the short term, in the next decade, I think the government could look at various solutions, like you mentioned, the BrahMos-equipped Sukhoi. We could look at the rocket forces. We are one of the very few countries to have test-fired hypersonic missiles, 1,500 kilometer range hypersonic missiles. The DRDO has that. It tested its hypersonic missile program 2024. There are other such advancements that they made in the missile programs. These, Gaurav, can be brought in to bridge the gap in the next couple of years. There's no point in, fretting over the fact that we don't have those fighters. What can we do in the short term with the capabilities, with the indigenous solutions that we have provided that can help the Indian Air Force carry out its missions as effectively,
yes.
With minimal loss of life, without putting our pilots in harm's way. The kind of technologies we've seen, Gaurav.
That's the future of warfare. And that's something that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Sandeep, he's been able to grasp. Of course, he's sent in fighter jets in Balakot across the LC to bomb across the international border. But in 2025, if anybody across the world wants to know how good Indian weapons are, no one better than the Pakistanis to give that certificate to our missiles, to our fighter jets, to our warfare, standoff weapons. That's the future of warfare.
It is, Gaurav, and it not only is that the future of warfare, but to have a political leadership that understands the utility of air power. 2019, you have Balakot. The Prime Minister signed off on that attack. It is a big risk, sending a fighter package right into Pakistani territory to hit that one terror training camp. 2020, Gaurav, when that Ladakh standoff happened, you and me were there on the ground. You remember the number of fighter aircraft that was surged into Leh. The government of India was clearly telling the Chinese, we are not going to sit out of this conflict. If it happens, like in 1962, the Indian Air Force fighter jets were the first in on the combat theater. And of course, we saw the utility of fighter jets, Su-30s with BrahMos in 2025. So this is a very important shift, Gaurav, in our strategic calculus. The fact that you have political leadership that understands the utility of air power.
you know, there's an old military saying, you slaughter the chicken and scare the monkey. And that message also appears to have been delivered very significantly. The use of India's air power. I'll leave it at that, at least for today. Sandeep, many thanks for joining me. There's lots more coming up on the other side of these messages. That's all I have for you on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching.